Good morning, everybody. Can I just start by asking you to type in the chat box if you can hear and see me okay? So just type yes in the chat box, please. Perfect. Okay. All right. Well, we've got an hour, so let's get started. Welcome to this webinar. It's the third in our Sharing is Learning Spring 2020 series. My name is Del Spafford, and I'm the Regional Teacher Trainer and Academic Consultant for Macmillan Education. I'm based in Thailand, and I can see we have a number of participants joining us from Thailand. Good morning. Sawadee Kap. Also, we have people from the Philippines, from Mexico, from Bangladesh, from India. So really all over the world. So thank you so much for your time and welcome to today's webinar. So Macmillan Education has been advancing learning for over 175 years. We work in a number of different educational institutions, and I'm very proud to work for Macmillan Education. I'm very proud to work with teachers and in education, particularly in this difficult time where I think teachers have really shown how important they are. We work in three main areas. So we work in English language learning, English language teaching, which I assume most of you will be working in. We also work in curriculum. So this is within schools, teaching science and geography and maths and other subjects. And we also work in higher education in universities and colleges. So today's session is going to be a little bit of crossover between English language teaching and also curriculum. So first language learning and also second language learning as well. So the title of my webinar is Oral Literacy Through Guided and Shared Reading. So oral literacy or oral language is our goal through reading programs within our schools. So I'm going to look mainly at guided and shared reading. I'm going to look at the benefits of reading, and I'm going to take you through a framework of teaching reading that hopefully you will be able to put into practice in your schools to benefit your students when it comes to being able to talk about texts. So my first question to you is all about reading programs at your school. So I'm quite interested to find out if you have a program already in your school. So I have a few different ideas here when it comes to a reading program. So number one is a reading club. So let me just give you a little description of these, and then I'll ask you to give me your feedback. So number one, we have a reading club. So a reading club really could be a time of day where somebody supervises students to come and read in their own time. It could be before school starts. It could be at the end of school. It could be a certain day of the week or a certain time of day. And it's really a time for students to select their own books and then be able to maybe share their ideas or maybe just read to themselves. Number two is a reading challenge. Now, a reading challenge is more structured. So a reading challenge would be where we set students a goal of a number of books that they would read. So, for example, with this reading challenge, we would set students maybe 6 books to read, and they would have this portfolio, this reading challenge portfolio. They have their name and their age, their teacher's name, and after reading a book, they would do a task, depending on the level of the students. So this could be a very simple task for maybe for primary 1 students. They could draw a picture of their favorite character, something along these lines. And then for maybe more stronger students, they could rewrite the ending. So there will be maybe 6 books and 6 tasks that they have to complete in order to pass the challenge. And then we have number 3, which is a guided reading program. So this is a program that might be that might fit into the curriculum that you're teaching. It's part of the syllabus. It's part of what you do every day or every week with your students. And this would be where a teacher would select a number of books, or the curriculum would select a number of books, and students have to read these books as they go through the term. And then we have number 4, which is an other. So this might be something that we haven't addressed. So in the chat box, can you write down, if you have a reading program at your school, which number represents the closest to you in terms of your reading program? 1, 2, 3. And if 4, type in a little brief description. Okay, so, oh, good. So lots of 3s, lots of guided reading. Good. Okay, nice critical reading. That's very important. Yes. We have a mini library. That's always great. And I hope students have access. Good, good, good. All right, so we have quite a few guided reading programs. So that's what we're going to look at a little bit today. It's guided reading and shared reading. All right, and let's see if your guided reading program is similar to the guided reading program I'm going to show you. Oh, I like that title, Avid Readers Club. That's really nice, Marie. Yeah, it's nice to have a name, isn't it, for your reading club? This might create more engagement. So before I did this session, I asked some of my teaching colleagues that I know about reading programs in their schools and whether they have them or not. And what I was interested in is looking at the barriers to having reading programs and seeing if our main challenges to having reading programs are similar to what yours are. So here I have some statements. So the first one, I don't have enough time. Now, this is a common problem for teachers. They have a lot to get through in terms of the syllabus and their curriculums. So putting in extra time for reading programs can be a challenge. Classes are too large to have shared or guided reading. Yeah, this is another common issue that we have across the region. Mixed ability, so we have to think about differentiation. How can we challenge those strong students? At the same time, how can we make sure our weaker students are participating? Resources, well, this is a key area, isn't it? Often our resources are limited by maybe budgets, and I'm going to show you a resource today which is fabulous for teaching guided reading and shared reading. My students are not engaged. Again, a key area. We have to try and get students interested in reading. And this has become more challenging, hasn't it? Particularly in this age where children are more engaged with electronic devices rather than maybe a paper book. And then F, the reading has very little to do with connection, very little connection to their lives. And I'm going to show you some tips and advice on how we can manage these areas. Now, you've already started doing it, so can you, yes, please, type into the chat box which of these statements resonates with you. So we've got a few people have written already, so can you just spend another 30 seconds and let me know? So quite a few E's, engagement, yeah. Yeah. Okay, all right, so quite a few, a couple of double two D's there. All right. Yeah, I think what I'm getting there is like this engagement, isn't it? That's quite a challenge, particularly, like I said, with digital devices being so prominent and so interesting for our students. We have to try and make reading interesting too. And I think a key is we have to start them early and often. All right, so throughout, I'm going to try and help you and give you some tips, some advice on how we can manage these problems, these challenges. Let's call them challenges rather than problems. So first of all, let's have a look at why reading is important for children. Now, please don't write in the chat box for this one, because it takes me, there's a lot of people out there and it's difficult to manage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 2 minutes and I'm going to ask you to write down at least 3 benefits for reading. Benefits of reading for children. Why is reading important? Make a list on wherever you're sitting, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes. If you can think of more than 3, then great. After that, you can check your list with my list and see if we match our ideas. So write it on a piece of paper, not in the chat box, and you've got 2 minutes. Okay, I'm going to give you 30 more seconds. Remember, write it on a piece of paper. It's very difficult for me to manage the chat box, but I can see people are writing in there. Okay, 10 more seconds. Okay, now, some of you have been putting some good ideas in the chat box, and as I said, your lists are home. I won't be able to see, but I want you now to check and see if you have the same ideas as me. Give yourself a point if you have the same ideas as me. So why is reading important for children? So if we look at the first picture here, let me just see if you can see my pointer. So the first picture here is to exercise our brain. So reading helps children exercise their brains. Of course, it's a complex task. It takes a lot of work in our brains. It inspires us, or it makes us make connections. If you compare this with watching television, for example, you might have the TV on and you can watch this passively. You can dip in and out. But with reading, you really need to be focused, which is the next picture. So reading helps us focus and concentrate. And by this, I want to give you an example of the opposite. So, for example, if you think about focus and concentration, the reading that I've done in the past has been reading to study for exams, where I have to read and retain the knowledge, and then at some stage further along the line, use the knowledge in an exam situation. Now, often I will read a page of the book, and because I'm not focused, because I'm not concentrating, I'll finish a page of the book, and I'll think, I haven't remembered anything that I've just read. It's completely gone, because it requires focus and concentration. Without it, you're not going to retain it. So this is a really great way to improve those skills of focusing and concentrating. The next one, reading helps children think about the world around them. So it's a great avenue. I know we have the internet nowadays, but by reading, we can focus really on different areas of the curriculum. We can introduce CLIL elements, so content language integrated learning through our reading texts. The next one, prepare students for academic success. Now, I saw somebody wrote that actually in the chat box. Preparing our students for the future is very, very important. If students are not good readers, then they won't be able to pass exams effectively or as well as they should do. And this reading also, studies show, affects our writing, which is also obviously important in exams. The next one reduces stress. Now, I'm sure that hopefully all of you are readers, and it's nice, isn't it? Particularly in today's age, it's very stressful at the moment. Nice just to pick up a book and get lost in a book. This woman is sitting in a hammock at the beach, but to be honest, you could be sitting in a corner of your room and still feel like you're sat at the beach, reducing your stress by reading. Generally, reading is free. There's lots of places you can go to pick up free books, particularly the school library if you're a student or a child. The next one, the second to last one, it creates bonds. Reading to people helps you to create a bond with that person. When you're reading to someone, they have to listen, and they have to be attentive, and you build bonds with each other. So teacher to students, students to students, and parents to their own children. I'm sure if you have children, you've enjoyed reading to them, or if you've got nephews or nieces, it's really cool, isn't it, when you read to them and they're listening to you and you're making voices and they're engaged, and this creates lovely, nice bonds. And then the last one helps build oral literacy, which is what we're looking at today. So it helps build our students' vocabulary and speaking skills. It's very important that we develop these skills with our students. And we're going to look at what oral literacy is in the next slide. Now, how many did you get that were the same as me? Did you get all 8? Did you get 3? How many did you get that was the same as me? Excellent. 3, 2. Oh, 0. Never mind. Good stuff. 6 is winning so far. Great. And I should point out that this list is not exhaustive. We could spend the whole 60 minutes, I am sure, looking at the benefits of reading and looking at different areas like the areas that you put in the chat box. Empathy and values. These kind of areas are also obviously important that somebody put. There are many, many reasons for it, but these seem to be the ones that were really loud when I was doing my research. So let's look at this one, oral literacy. Okay, sorry, before we go into that, I have a tip for you. Now, we're going to punctuate our webinar with some tips for you. So having a reason to read is very, very important. And I think it's important that you also let your students know why reading is important. All right, so it's not enough just to say, right, kids, we're going to do some reading today because reading is important. Let them know why. So if we go back to the last slide, you can put these on the walls of your classrooms, particularly when we go back to teaching face-to-face. And every day I'm hearing more positive stories about teachers going back into the classroom. Have these on the wall and simplify the language so that children know why reading is important. Teach them not just how to read, but why they should be reading. So what is oral literacy? Now, I'm not going to read this to you. You can read this yourself, and I'll give you 30 seconds just to have a quick look at this, these definitions. But what I can see is that, I think what you can see is that oral language or oral literacy goes hand in hand with reading comprehension, and vice versa. Reading comprehension is dependent on those language skills. And the 4 areas that our lovely materials, or some of the materials I'm going to show you today, focus on these 4 elements: listening and responding, very important for communication, obviously; vocabulary, having conversations, and questioning. And you can see behind me, actually, some of the different titles to talk about tests that I'm going to select. Now, I can see some of you posting questions. That's great. And we will have a Q&A at the end of the session where we can discuss some of the questions that you have. So what are the types of reading programs that we can use? So we looked a little bit at the start, didn't we, at what reading programs you have at your school. So can anybody tell me what reading program this teacher is teaching at the moment? Suraya is correct. Yeah, this is guided reading, very much guided NEEM. Yes, it's the teacher with a small group of students. They all have the same book, and the teacher is supporting them and guiding them through the reading program. Good, good. What's the next one? The teacher's at the front of the class with a big book. Now, she might also, or he might also, have the text on the whiteboard, projected onto the whiteboard. So what do we call this? Is yes, yes. This is shared reading. Yes. So this is the students all reading the same book, one book at the front of the classroom, and the teacher is still there supporting them and guiding them through. And then the last one, what do we call this? Yeah, this is storytelling or read aloud. Yes, this is our sessions where a teacher will read to the students, and hopefully the teacher will be very engaging and will get the students involved in the story that she's telling. This is a very common reading program at schools. It's very effective. It's very common, and because it probably takes the least amount of resources. All the teacher needs is a book and the students to sit and hopefully pay attention. Right. When we come to teaching guided or shared reading, which is what we're going to look at today, storytelling, I think, is very common, but it's a different area. Storytelling is different to what we're looking at with shared and guided reading. Storytelling is more just for the fun of listening to a story rather than improving any literacy or language skills. Guided and shared reading actually improves their vocabulary, their literacy and their language skills. So here we have a framework, all right, for teaching guided and shared reading. You might notice that my framework here is mixed up. So we start here and we go down, along, up, along, and down. What I would like you to do, I'm going to give you 1 minute, and I would like you to write in the chat box the correct order for my framework. Can you put it in the correct order? For example, the first stage would be F, to group our learners. All right? We're putting our students into their groups. What comes next? Can you write them in the chat box? Write them in the order. So F, just write the letters in the chat box. And you can write them in a sequence. I will give you 1 minute to write your sequence. So we've got F first, what comes next, and then after that, and after that, and after that. All right, Christopher, there we go. Okay, lovely. So I've got some nice ideas here. Now you will notice, if you're looking in the chat box, that they are different, and that's fine. Okay, I'm going to show you what works for me. But if you have different ideas, hey, good for you. And you can change your framework. The good thing about the framework is that it's flexible, depending on you and your learners and your style of teaching. So don't worry if your sequence is different to my sequence. Here is my sequence. Did you have a similar or same sequence? Not quite, yeah. Probably it's not going to be quite, is it? Like I said, you're going to have different ideas depending on the way that you teach and the way that your classes are set up. But what is important is that we have the same stages within our framework. And obviously, the follow-up task will probably be the last one in everybody's sequence, right? That seems to be the case. You might have chosen the text before you group your learners. It's up to you, really, but this is the one that's worked for me and works with the materials that I am using. So my next tip is to have a framework for your reading sessions. So make sure that you follow your framework and reflect on your framework and see if it works. You should have frameworks actually similar to your lesson planning for all types of teaching that you do. So if you're teaching grammar, you might have a framework for your teaching of grammar. And this really helps with time management and makes things less time consuming and less confusing when it comes to preparing lessons. It gets you into a nice frame of teaching, as the word framework mentions, but also helps to improve your effectiveness. Now, stage one, let's look at these stages in detail. So the first stage, I've got group the learners. So if we are using guided reading, we're looking at a small group of students, all right? So we got 6 students per group. Now, I'm sure you're rapidly typing now. I can't have 6 students in my teacher, 6 students on their own because my classes have 40 or students in them. And this is the challenge with guided reading. Ideally, small groups, but we understand that your classes are large. So this is where we need to kind of change maybe the guided reading approach into a shared reading approach. But with a shared reading approach, you can also have groups within the big group. And this is really, really useful for you when it comes to classroom management. You can select your group leaders, within your groups, and they can help you manage the classroom. So if you have a group of 30 students, you can have 6 groups of 5. My maths is good. 6 groups of 5 within that group. And one of the members of each group is the group leader and will help you to keep the other students in that group engaged. So try and think of your class as small groups within a big group when you're doing shared reading. My next tip is when you're setting up sessions, make sure that you do something that signifies that it's a reading lesson. Try and find something in your wardrobe that maybe you haven't seen for a while, an old jacket, an old hat. You can see here me, I'm dressed as a doctor. maybe I was doing a session on as a language doctor. So myself and John, who you may have seen in the previous webinar, we dressed up as doctors to create engagement and create a bit of fun around what we were doing. You can also give hats and badges to the group leaders, give them ownership, give them a sense that the reading session is about to start. Once you've done this the first couple of times, all you need to do is put on your jacket and your hat, and the reading session starts. Children will automatically get into their groups, and they will know immediately that the reading session is about to begin. So have fun with it. This creates engagement. This is not just the teacher saying, hey guys, let's do some reading. No, this is the teacher also getting excited and creating a bit of fun around the reading that we're about to do. Okay, the next stage is to select our text. So you will see that I've put the selecting of the text second. Now, really, I'm thinking about my class before the term, even maybe not before the term starts, obviously, but maybe after the first lesson. I've maybe done a needs analysis, and this is where I've selected my groups. This is, I know what groups I want my students to work in, and that's why I'm selecting my text second. The text obviously match the needs of the group, match the level. The level should be a little bit above, but easy enough to understand. There should be some words in there that the students are going to need to learn. And the text should be different lengths, different topics, different genres. So make sure that you select different styles for your different types of students. And a little tip here is to maybe have a group of text. So you can see my beautiful books behind me. I might select, say, through the term, we're going to read 5 books. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get 10 books and put them on my desk. The children can come up and I will give each of them 5 post-it notes. And they can come up and they can stick their post-it notes on the book that they want to read. All right. So what I will then do is collect those in at the end, and the 5 books with the most post-it notes will be the selection of books that we will read. Now, I do need to take into account the different genres, of course, but hopefully they will select different genres. By doing this, by giving them a choice, we are giving them also a reason for them to read. They are accountable now because they have chosen the books that they want to read. So there's an element of accountability there. Try and mix up the books. Yeah, try and make them a bit more CLIL involved. And with our series of books here, you have 4 levels from foundation to level 3, and there are 160 books to choose from. So having the students choose a book is very important. So a very important part of reading. Think about your readings when you read books. Nobody really goes up to you and says, you have to read this book. You choose the book yourself. You go to a bookshop, you go, that looks interesting. I like the page, I like the pictures, maybe not the pictures, but I like the author, probably as an adult. And you would select that book yourself. It's very rare that we have someone tell us the books that we have to read unless we're reading for studying. Our next step is 3 and 4. So this is to introduce our text and to activate the schemata. So by activating schemata, what do I mean? What does activate schemata mean? Can anybody tell me in the chat box? Yeah, Henry, that's correct. Yeah. Prior knowledge, that's right. Yeah. So we're finding out what they already know. Beautiful. Thank you very much. So what we're going to do is we're going to elicit the title using the cover of the book. So we might just show them the cover of the book, cover the title, and see if they can tell us. So I have actually Powered by Nature here. I might cover that up. It's difficult in the mirror, in the camera, and ask them what they think the story will be about, of course. We can have a look at the pictures in the book. and we can discuss what they see in the pictures. Now, this is a higher level book, and I'm going to show you some of the examples. I chose a higher level book because you're likely to be higher level. Now, we also have books for kindergarten level as well. And with those kind of students, we're looking at vocabulary items. With higher levels, we might be looking at the kind of book it is, the kind of text. Is this a story? Is it a brochure? Is it factual? Is it fiction? Is it imaginative? Is it producing a discussion? So what is the book about? What is it trying to do? What's the genre of the book? With higher levels, with lower levels, with younger children, we will be looking at vocabulary items. So once we've done that, we can start asking questions about the book. So we've had a look at the book, and now I'm going to ask some specific questions about the book. So if you were to show this book to your students, can you tell me a question that you might ask your students? A hook, a lean-in or a hook, yes. What would you ask your students if you were to elicit? So tell me what you would elicit from this picture. Okay, what can you see? Yeah, this is the title, good. What's the title of the book? Sources of Energy. So ask a question, Ralph. Yes, very good, Brian. What different power sources can you see? Yes. What type of energies do you know? This is great. Yes, excellent. Okay, lovely. So as you can see, I've put questions there for you. I've done a little bit of scaffolding, which we will talk about in a moment, to help you. Now, the great thing about this is that you can see in the front of the book, there are questions here for the teacher to ask. These questions are already prepared for you. Okay, so this will help us with our time management. So now we need to think about key lexis. What is the vocabulary that we're going to teach? Now, this is an interesting area for me. How many new words should we teach? If you think of a lower 5, Marie, thank you. Yeah. Well, I've got between 5 or 9. The reason I put between 5 or 9 is because from the research that I did, I saw 7, either -2 or +2. So between 5 or 9. The problem is if we've got too many words that we're teaching, we know that the text is too challenging. All right. And if there's not enough words, then we know it's too easy. But we don't want to be teaching too many. And also, we want our students to be able to work out some of the words from the context. So between 5 and 9 is ideal. And you will know this from your students and your students' strengths. Again, obviously, yeah, depends on the level, depends on your students, yeah. And you want to use different strategies, of course. So you're going to be using the similar kind of techniques that you would teach normally when teaching vocabulary. Use flashcards, drill the pronunciation, get them to spell words, etc. But this is the key area for oral literacy. You need to teach vocabulary for talking about the text. If you want a child to discuss nature and power from nature, they need to be able to have the language to discuss. This is the talking about the text. They also need the vocabulary to understand the text, which is the content vocabulary in the text itself. But in order to talk about it, we might need to teach some other language. Let me give you an example. So this is the teacher's edition of the book. Here we have the student's edition, and I should have, and we have the teacher's edition somewhere that I put somewhere else as well. Never mind. So we have the teacher's edition, and in the front of the teacher's edition, you will see a similar lesson plan, if you like, or idea here. Now, the first thing is to activate the knowledge. We've done that, and we've done the prediction activities. Here we have the vocabulary for talking. So remember, I said the difference between the vocabulary for talking and the vocabulary for reading. So the vocabulary for talking, the main point, the reason, the author, the photograph, and think. So this is language that students need to be able to talk about the text. The vocabulary for reading is our content words here: source, benefits, renewable, and these different words that they will see in the text so they can understand the comprehension of the text. So this is the key area. How do we get students to talk if they don't have the language to talk? They can understand the text, but they can't tell us about the text without this language here. So when you're when you're thinking about reading with your students and you want them to talk about the text, you want them to build their oral literacy, you need to start thinking about how you can do this, what language you need. And then we look at the setting the goal and the strategy. I think this is really important for students as well. You remember before I said about letting students know what the benefits of reading are. That's great. And here we can give students the reason why they are reading this particular text. So this is our strategy. Now, with lower level, when I say lower levels, with younger children who might not have that cognitive ability to understand strategies of reading, then maybe you don't need to do this too much. But with older students who are building that knowledge, that meta knowledge of reading and of learning, then it's important that we talk about the strategies. Now, with these texts that I've got behind me, you have got three different kinds of text. We have persuasive text, you can see at the bottom. So text that promote maybe a discussion or some analysis. We have informative text, which are factual texts, and we have imaginative texts, which are reading stories, narratives, and that kind of thing. And then with each one of them, we will have strategies for reading skills as well, and of speaking skills as well. So talk strategies and reading strategies at the same time. Let them know why they are reading. And now we actually start the reading. Okay, so the learners are reading actively, and at the same time, they're discussing. The oral language is being produced, and they're responding to the text. So this is the teacher's job. The teacher will guide the students in what they have to do. The teacher will say to the students, read page 2, or the teacher will read page 2 to the students. The students might read the page to each other. One student might read to the whole class. It will be guided for you within the book. The teacher has clear instructions, and I'll show you an example in a moment of the teacher's book and exactly what the teacher has to say and the questions they can ask. The students can then ask questions, and they will be given language that they need to ask the questions, and the teacher will encourage students to answer in full sentences, not yes or no questions. What did you like the book? Yes, and then you finish. No, the teacher will be asking questions to tell them about the main point. What was the reason for that? And getting students to answer in full sentences. When you're grouping your students, make sure you follow your normal interaction patterns. So here we have a nice group of 6 students in their class, but think about your groups. You could have one group for the whole term if it's easy for your classroom management, but play different games to group your student. Keep them on the toes. I'm going to come to your questions, Ivana, at the end of the session, so I'll try and keep an eye on those questions then. So here is an example of from this book that I showed you, the students edition. So here you can see the beautiful text with some lovely pictures, something that they can relate to. It's content language integrated learning. It's something that is important to them, and it's something that hopefully they will be interested in. So the students have this text in their hands, or at the front of the class, projected on the screen, or on an ebook. The teacher's edition is very, very similar. However, the teacher's edition has lots of information for the teacher. So you can see it's the same page. Highlighted is the key vocabulary. All right, so that's very clear for the teacher to see. We go back to the student's page. There's no key no vocabulary highlighted, but the teacher has this information. The teacher then is instructed to say. So it really gives you really important detail in how to plan a guided reading lesson. Right down to what you have to say to the students. Read page 12 and 13 to yourself. When you have finished, read again to your partner. All you will have to do really is check those instructions. Okay, so what page are you going to read? What do you do when you've finished? Who will you read to? And you check those instructions. So it then says what you're going to read, and it gives you the questions already written for checking your comprehension, your understanding. All right, so students have to answer these questions orally. Then we have the talk section. So here we have a question. What is the author's main point in this part of the text? So students need to understand author and main point. All right, and the rest of the language around that will be important to them. But if they can understand author and main point, they should be able to answer the question. The scaffolding, the language is here in your book. You'll put this on the board so that students can access this when they need it, and you can point to it. You can say, here, have a look here at the language I want you to read. Full sentences, please, and point to the language so students can actually access that language when they need it. So everything is there in one place. Really fantastic materials, and something that if you just have simple readers, think about this program and how you can build that into the readers that you're using at the moment as well. And the last part is our follow-up tasks. Now, the follow-up task, we can look at 3 different areas: think, talk, and write. Now, I've selected a book, a lower level book, to show you some examples here, and a higher level book, which is what we've been looking at all the way through. So if we have an idea about think, so the higher level, so thinking of going back to our Powered by Nature, what are the main reasons for choosing renewable energy? All right, so this is a higher level thinking question. And again, we have to think about the level of our students. We looked at a little bit about the about second language learners. Of course, this might be a challenge for you, so you might want to give them even more support, but that's up to you and the level of your students. With the lower levels, we've got how do you get ready for school? Quite a simple question. What is the first thing you do? What does your family do to help you get ready? Here we have, you might notice that our follow-up task is highly personalized. So you can see we've got the focus in your area. How do you get ready for school? What do you do? So this personalization makes the reading more memorable. All right, and this helps our students to be able to think about it even more. So we have think, then we had talk. So here they may be talking to their partner. All right, so you might want to be thinking about which partners they discuss this with. And again, scaffolding, you have to get the answers on the board, some simple examples, if you like, on the board of the answers that they are producing. And remember, with scaffolding, when we give the students the language that they need, when we build a house and we have scaffolding, when the house is nearly finished, we take the scaffolding away. When the students get comfortable using the language, rub it off the board, get them to start thinking and using their own language and the language that they can remember. So think about your partners, think about your scaffolding, and think about when you remove your scaffolding. And the last one, we have write. So again, higher levels, we might think about the higher level thinking skills, analyzing text, and we might use a graphic organizer. We might have a Venn diagram. And again, highly personalized. Write a letter to your local council. All right, that's quite a lofty task, isn't it? Whether you would prefer wind power or solar power. So you might want to hopefully get your students to engage with English outside the classroom as well. Who knows, they might even get a reply, and what a motivation that would be. So think outside of the classroom as well when it comes to the follow-up tasks. With the lower levels, we simply have write an account. So write about your day, when you get ready for school, draw a picture, and this kind of thing. So we get them to engage. Again, personalize it, make it more memorable. Okay, well, we've gone through the stages of the framework, and I'm looking pretty good for time. So I have the last slide I just wanted to show you was a recap of our reflections and thoughts on reading with our students in class and how we can address them. So don't have enough time to plan. Now you can imagine if you have materials such as this with the resources in the front of the book, this is going to show you how you can save time. When you have your own reading materials, once you've done it once you've gone through your book and you've prepared what you're going to say, you've prepared the questions you're going to ask, then this will save you time actually in the future, because you only have to do it once and use it over and over again. Classes are too large. So what you need to do with large classes, again, like I said, is make smaller groups within the large class. Mixed ability, well, hopefully you're going to be teaching the pre-teaching the vocabulary for speaking. That's a key, so that all students can talk and that all students can understand. Suitable resources. This is up to you to find. These resources are amazing. Talk About Texts by Macmillan. They're wonderful resources. If you don't have access to these resources, think about other ways of getting resources, but do a similar approach to the Talk About Text. Students are not engaged when they read, hopefully by giving them a choice of what they read, by you being involved in the reading, dressing up, putting your hat on. This will help you with engagement. And little reading has very little connection to their own lives. Make sure it does. So select your text. So the traditional readers that we have, Western fairy tales might not be that interesting. So think about more content language integrated learning as well as stories. Okay, well, we've got a few minutes left. So I'm going to go on to our Q&A now. Also on the slide here is one moment, please. You will be able to have access to the presentation at the end. Maybe not the PowerPoint, but certainly the video. But I'd really like your feedback on our session. So delivering webinars is something that we've been doing a lot more of, obviously, in this time of COVID-19. And we want to be better at it. We want to make sure that you get the right information and at the right speed and at the right time. So please give us your feedback. It's really important to us. And we do look at it. We do take it into account and analyze it. If you have want any information about the product that I've shown you today, if you're in China, obviously, contact this email address here. If you're in the rest of Asia, then please use the email below. And if you have any questions about teaching, anything you or you want to keep in touch, then please email me directly. I'm very happy to talk to teachers. I miss you a lot. Normally we would be doing face-to-face sessions, and it's a shame that we can't do that. And I've seen some familiar names. So if you want to get in touch, just to say hi, how are you? I'd be happy to hear from you. So please get in touch. All right, now let me have a look at the Q&A and see if I can help you with some of your questions. So, there's a number of questions, so I'm going to have to select a few of these. So just give me a moment to have a look. Okay, so Amir asked the question. So in my context, I don't see the same class or learners for another 2 to 3 months. And each session has to follow a fixed lesson objective. How can I keep track of my students being active readers in such circumstances? Now, Amir, for this problem or this challenge, I would suggest a reading challenge program. And what you need to do, if you want to, you can contact me and I'll send you an example of a reading challenge program that you can implement with your students. And this is basically a small pamphlet, a small book, a little portfolio that they can use to track what they read. So after they read a book, they will do a task. Like I said, with lower levels, it might be to draw a picture of their favorite character. And with higher levels, it might be to do a follow-up writing activity. But have a reading challenge so you can manage those students. This is a good question. So this is from Prat Sim. How can we apply shared and guided learning online? This is going to be a challenge for you. Now, obviously, if you're using Zoom or another platform, you can put, if you've got a small group of students, then it's fine. It depends on the number of students that you have. You can obviously put the text onto the screen and have students read it with you. But it's when you're doing shared reading, it's quite nice to be able to see their faces and to make sure that they're engaged with it. So with this, it's going to be a bit more of a challenge. And I think this is something that I would like to look at more and see if I can help you with guided and shared reading online. Okay, just having another look. Okay, so yeah, what happens if they can't listen well? Well, this is the key area of choosing the correct book. So you're choosing the right level of book. Now, these books are all leveled, and I believe they follow the lexile framework of leveling the books. You will see here we've got RL21. The book behind us is of a different level. So they are leveled depending on your students. You will need to think where your students are. And if you need to provide further support, then that's up to you as a teacher. But only you will know that from knowing who your students are. So when it comes to choosing the book, I have a question. The whole class chooses the same book. Yeah, like I said, if you're only going to read 5 books in a term, then have a selection of books like you have behind me. You might have like a display of books, and these are the books the students can read. Give each student 5 post-it notes, maybe chop them up in a line. They got 5, and they have to put the post-it note on the book that they would like to read. Then at the end, the book with the most post-it notes will be the first book, and the second book will be the book with the second most post-it notes. The children have a choice. This creates accountability for them. They've chosen their own book. Okay, let me go further down. Some of the questions are about the actual book itself. Okay, and then the last question I'll look at is, if we teach more than 20 children, how can we be sure that they discuss in English and not in their mother tongue? Very good question, Ivana. So what I'm thinking here is if you've got 20 children in the class, you have 5 groups of 4, and one of those students is the group leader, and it is his or her job to make sure that their group is speaking in English, that their group is reading the text, that their group is not messing around. So they're helping you with those classroom management tasks. So like I said, large classes, fine. Break them up into smaller groups and have students monitor each other. All right. With little ones, it's a bit more of a challenge. With older ones, you're giving them responsibility, and hopefully this will create some nice engagement in the class. Okay, well, we've come to 11 o'clock. I'm sure you're all very busy people and you've got things that you need to go and do. I want to say a final thank you to everybody for participating today. It's been a real pleasure and a privilege for me to be here. Thank you in advance for your feedback, and I hope you have some ideas and something to take away for when you move into teaching reading, shared reading and guided reading with your students. So thank you very much. Take care, all the best, and hopefully we'll be seeing you face to face very soon. Bye.